Hey, y'all, yo, look, I had something that happened to me this week that really kind of got under my skin. I'm not going to get into who it was specifically or any of those details behind that. But honestly, that part is not what actually became interesting to me. It started with me seeing something, then immediately saying, hold up, I know exactly what I'm looking at right now. Have you ever had one of those moments where you've seen somebody doing something and it looks familiar just enough to make you do that double take? It's not like, oh, they're using the same colors that I use, or this person's talking about the same thing that I talked about. It's more about when there was history there. You know the person, you had conversations, you've bounced ideas around with each other. You knew what they were doing before, and they also knew what you were working on. And then somewhere along the way, your whole relationship with that person kind of went radio silent, but the watching you part never stopped. Look, I'm not going to lie, that's the part that irritated me a little bit, because my first reaction was, yo, are you serious right now? More like, I know you see me doing this already. But then I started thinking about it a little more. And then the longer I thought about it, the less interesting that person became to me. But then I realized that this happens everywhere to a lot of different people, especially in areas of music, fashion, business, comedy, making content, even podcasting. Somebody could spend years chiseling their coal into a diamond, and somebody else could recognize just how valuable that actually was. They could package it just a little differently, put more money behind it, or just put it in front of more people. And then suddenly everybody associates that idea with who they saw doing it second. That's when my whole thought changed up. Now I wasn't just thinking, is somebody copying me right now? I started thinking, what happens when your work becomes recognizable before your name does? And that's a much bigger conversation to have. So let's talk about it. There's a stage in building that nobody ever warns you about. You're good enough to influence people, but you're not big enough for people to believe that you were the one who created it. And that's a strange road to travel. You see that people are watching you. Some of them are quietly learning from you. Some of them are inspired by you and don't even fully know that yet. And every now and then, somebody can see what you're working on and understand how valuable that is before the rest of the world understands how valuable you are. And that's when it can get a little sticky, because if they have more reach than you or more money, a bigger engine behind them, your idea can become famous before you do. And then if you open your mouth and say, hold on, wait a minute, I was doing that, now you sound crazy. So today, I'm not talking about having jealousy. I'm not even talking about every similarity becoming a theft. I want to talk about recognition. You see, sometimes the people that notice your value first are the same people that don't want anyone else to see it. What happens when your idea becomes famous before you do? Welcome to Word Forward, y'all, where we build structure and clarity in this noisy world together. I'm your host, Damien J and this is episode 24. And look, I think every person who makes something long enough, you'll eventually run into this version of this. Maybe you're a content creator. Maybe you run a business. Maybe you make music. Maybe you just write. Maybe you're that person that says something at work in that meeting, nobody reacts to it, and then 15 minutes later, somebody else will say the same thing you just said, and then everybody goes, yeah, that's it right there. Now you're just sitting there like, bruh, I said that. So this isn't an internet created conversation. This is about credit. It's about giving recognition. It's about owning the influence. It's about that uncomfortable space between being influenced by somebody and quietly extracting what they create. But still, I also want to be fair, right? I know every similarity isn't a theft in progress. Every person talking about something that you talk about isn't someone studying your moves for real. And if you start believing that everybody is copying you, eventually you'll start watching everybody else's work instead of building your own thing. So we're going to deal with both sides of this today. We're going to talk about why people can recognize your value without showing that in public. Why somebody with a bigger platform can sometimes associate with an idea that they never even created. Where I think the line is between inspiration, imitation, and extraction. And most importantly, why none of that should be an excuse for you to stop growing. I know somebody might be able to reproduce something that you created, right? They might even package it better than you did. But there's something that they don't automatically get just because they saw your finished project. There is a difference between two things that sound almost identical. I see something valuable in what you're doing, and I know something valuable that you're doing, and I want other people to see that you're doing it. Some people will consume your work privately and then show the same support publicly. That's what you call a real one. That's an ally for real. Then there's some people that will consume your work privately and pretend that they never even saw it at all in public. They'll watch every single post that you make, and they'll borrow your framework. They'll notice the things that are working for you and then low-key start doing a different version of that. But then when you ask them to comment or share it, tag you or say your name out loud so that the audience can actually hear that, now it's crickets. And on that, I had to ask myself, why is that? Why would somebody go radio silent on you the second that you become useful to follow? And at what point does somebody stop seeing you as a person they don't need to help grow anymore, and then start seeing you as somebody they need to be ahead of? That's a bigger question than just copying. That's called ego. That's scarcity. That's somebody deciding quietly in their head that your visibility needs to be silenced. Now, listen, nobody owes anyone free promotion. I get that. I want to say that clearly because I'm not here to say that people are required to shout you out. That's not where I'm going with this one. We do have to touch on this contradiction, though. Everybody in this creative space, they always say it's community over competition. You know, I hear that a lot. And then I watch what people actually do with their reach. If somebody with 500,000 followers see somebody with only 5,000 followers doing something brilliant, you'll never lose followers because somebody else is talented. Unless somewhere in your head you believe that their attention is ownership. Like, there's so much of it to go around, and every little bit that somebody else gets is taking advantage of you somehow. Think about it like this. You think KFC gets mad at Popeyes? Like, Stop and Shop is literally down the street from ShopRite. Do you think that they're online pretending that the other one doesn't exist? No. They just keep moving in their own direction. They don't feel like they have to eliminate the competition to feel secure about something that they built. Competition doesn't require pretending you're the only one capable of doing this work. That's the part that gets to me, honestly. Grown, successful people way further along than me, will still treat someone smaller than them, like me, as a threat, instead of an ally for it. And maybe the better question is, why does someone smaller have to prove that they're safe before someone bigger than them is willing to acknowledge them? Why is it so easy to take from someone else's work, but so hard to acknowledge in public that that work was worth noticing? Look, I gotta be fair for real. This is where a lot of people can mess this conversation up. All creators borrow ideas. I borrow too. You borrow. Nobody's building inside of a vacuum. Music is always inspired by other music. Writing, it will always come from reading. Business ideas grow inside of other business ideas. So borrowing by itself isn't the problem for real. But there's a level of this that's worth naming out loud, just so that we're all on the same page right now. Inspiration is something like, I saw what you did right there, And that sparked something different inside of me. But imitation moves like, I like what you did right there, so I'm going to go and make my own version of that. Now, extraction is, I see the value in what you just created. I'm going to take away all your valuable pieces. And then I'm going to wipe your fingerprints off of those. Then I'm going to present it like it started with me. Inspiration, I'll always understand that. Imitation, okay, sometimes that's just how the culture moves. But extraction, that's just evil. It's just copying the output without ever learning the process of how that output started to work. And that's a whole different animal than great minds think alike. Here's the part that's actually brutal. And I felt a version of this myself. The internet doesn't necessarily reward who thought of something first. A lot of the times, it rewards the person that distributed it the best. The person holding the microphone will get mistaken for the person who wrote the song. I'll give you a quick story. During my gamerhood days, there was a 30-hour gaming streaming challenge for Leukemia and Cancer Society. I built a hub, a community. It was for us to gather around after that challenge had ended. That was all mine. That came from me actually being a gamer. I built an actual community, and it took actual work. But not far long after that, I watched a major company back a version of that same concept I created. And then they put big money and big name creators behind it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I got all the paperwork, proving a straight line from what I built to what they did. I don't have that kind of receipt. But I do know what it feels like to watch something that you built show up somewhere later on, wearing someone else's bigger budget. And that's a trap for the small creators especially. Imagine someone with 2,000 followers, and they build something really, really cool. And then someone with 2 million followers sees it. They repackage the whole thing, and then it blows up. 6 months later, that original creator will say, yo, that's mine. That's my idea. And what does everyone else say back to them? Does the market remember who started something or who made it famous? The timeline gets rewritten by whoever has the loudest microphone. And that's exactly where this episode reconnects back to proof that you were here. You need to document your work, not because you're trying to hold a legal case against the whole internet, because timestamps matter, drafts matter, old posts will matter. Your body of work is the receipt for how long your thinking was developed, whether someone asks to see it or not. Somebody could take your finished idea, and for a minute, they might even wear it better than you did. They might put better lighting to it. They'll put better marketing to it. They have more followers, and then they put more money behind it. And then you're sitting there like, damn, that looks really good on you. But here's the problem. You can wear the garment, but you don't own the stitching pattern. You don't know why one piece will connect to the other piece. You will never know the 10 bad versions of that I made before I got this one good version. You don't know what I've learned building it, failing to build it, rebuilding it again at 4 a.m. when nobody was even watching me do it. You just got the product, but I got the process. And that's why eventually the imitator will just have to shapeshift. If you're only copying the output instead of building the actual engine underneath the whole thing, your material is going to run out. You're going to have to find a new trend, a new identity, someone else's thinking that you have to borrow next. You have to wear a whole nother costume. Meanwhile, the person that actually built it the first time can lose everything, but then they can build it again. Because if that garment fell apart tomorrow, they'll need another one, but you'll still know how to make one. They don't. Now, let me be honest about something. People are pattern recognition machines. Once you feel copied, every little similarity starts looking like evidence. The same color, the same word, the same postures on camera. Suddenly it's all proof. And I've been wrong about this before. I looked at somebody's page and felt the same type of way. And then I later realized, nah, that's just two people that came up watching the same things, landing in the same place. And that happens. It's not always a theft. Sometimes it's just culture. So the standard can't be, I did something and you did something similar later on. Therefore, you took it from me. That's not fair to say. And thinking like that will make you paranoid and small. The line I'm drawing today is just about pattern, access, proximity, history. Someone able to watch what you build in real time. And then the fingerprints start showing up somewhere else. That's different than two strangers arriving at the same idea from opposite ends of the internet. Here's the danger on the other side of all of this. After I felt that this week, you can get so locked in on watching somebody that might be copying you that you just stop creating altogether. And now they really got you. You'll end up spending 3 hours a day checking somebody else's page, screenshotting, comparing the dates, getting yourself overheated and worked up, talking about them to everybody that you know. Meanwhile, you didn't make anything today. That's the actual trap. Because if somebody copied what I did last week, they copied the last week me. They don't have the this week me yet. They can't. While they're trying to reverse engineer what I already put out, I'm supposed to be somewhere building whatever was next. They can copy what I did, but they'll never be able to copy where my brain is going next. So maybe somebody's watching you right now. Maybe somebody borrowed something. Maybe somebody out there with a bigger audience than you is getting applause for something that you might have already said. It's only because no one's really listening hard enough. You just have to keep your receipts. Protect what actually needs protecting, but also give credit back when it's you doing the borrowing. Pull the next person up when you get a chance to. Don't wait until they're big to remember what it felt like to be small. And then just get back to work. Because somebody copying your last move, they're not ahead of you. They're actually behind you. They have to be. That's the only place that they could have seen it from. They can wear the garment, but you still own the pattern. And that's what I really, really want you to remember. Being copied doesn't make you less original. Somebody else getting the attention, it will never make you less valuable. And someone else having a bigger microphone or platform doesn't mean that they had the first thoughts. Just remember, while everyone else is still watching, you don't stop building. All right, so before I get out of here, I want to leave this one challenge with you. Go through something that you created a while ago, an old post, a note, a voice memo, a draft, an idea sitting somewhere that you might have almost forgot about. Look at it again, not just to see if someone else copied you, not to compare it to someone else and what they're doing. Just look at how long you've actually been here already, building and growing. Because sometimes you just need to look at your own receipts, just to remind yourself that you weren't imagining that work. And then go and make something new. Because the best proof that you're a creator is if you only keep creating. If somebody came to mind while you were listening to this one, I want you to send this episode to them. And not the person that you think stole something from you. I mean someone that's actually building. Someone might need a reminder that they're being overlooked, but it doesn't mean that they're not being seen. I want you to follow Word Forward on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, and jump in my comments this week and tell me something. Where do you think the line is between inspiration and being copied? I really want to hear those, and you know I'm going to respond back. The inner circle is in the description, so we can dig in this topic a little bit more. This is Word Forward, y'all. I'll see you in the next one.